Alright, so I've got my subfloor, I guess you call them joists, down. Got those with a gap in the middle to run my steering cable and throttle cable. And then I realized I want to put a knee in right here, which is why I left all this unpainted. I'm going to put a knee in there to give some more strength to the transom because it's a big heavy motor going on this thing. You know, just a little extra insurance there. I got a piece of 2x3. It's actually from the framing timbers, same height, right? I'm going to stick that there. Then I'm going to take this piece of plywood I want to use, and that's pretty much, that's where I want it to sit there. But see, I got this big gap at the back here, right, with the angle. Take something wide and square, lay that like that, and get your angle. I'm gonna take it over here to the chop saw, sliding compound miter saw. It's not perfect, it's pretty close though, but we definitely want perfect before we cut it for length, because there's no change in that angle after we cut it for length. So yeah, that'll work. That's our cut to fit. Oh yeah, top of our piece right here. I guess I ought to have a swoop in it, huh? Pretty good. Maybe we should put a curve in it, huh? Maybe to reflect the curves in the rest of the boat. This curve's a little bit much. Hey, not too bad, not too bad. I even surprise myself sometimes. All right, I've mixed up a little epoxy and glass. You see I drilled a couple of pockets here, one here for screws, and then I'm going to screw through the front 2x4 right into the face of this. So for flooring, I'm going to use some 1/2-inch plywood. Of course, going to taper it and curve it and make it fit. And then up front here is going to be a wide, flat platform to stand and fish from. I'm going to contour this stuff and get it figured out, and then we're going to put fiberglass on each individual flooring panel, let them dry, and install them tomorrow. So I've cut 2 of the floorboards. I've cut my forward fishing platform. It's a really small fishing platform. This is the bottom side. You can see I've tapered the edges with the planer on both sides, notched it for the frames, and this is going to be permanently affixed and filled with foam underneath so that there's no water intrusion. If you decide to build a boat utilizing what they call a cold molded process, you're going to be sanding. You're going to be sanding to a degree that's disturbing. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's a hodgepodge of different pieces of fiberglass, but we're about to do the cap of this whole thing. And guess what? We're using Home Depot fiberglass, and we are using Home Depot Bondo fiberglass resin. It's polyester. I don't really care what folks say or think or whatever about it. Doesn't bond to plywood, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, you can't do this with it. People have been building boats with this stuff since the beginning of time. It's a lot cheaper than epoxy, although to save the most money, I wouldn't advise buying it from Home Depot. But otherwise, polyester resin's a whole lot cheaper, and you could probably build most of this boat with polyester resin in your glass. But I wouldn't use it on the structural stuff, like where I've been using epoxy resin to put the framing together, to apply the plywood to the framing. But for regular layup on plywood, all day long, a lot cheaper, save y'all some money. I'm just doing it to prove a point. Use exactly this much acetone. I'm gonna thin it down a little bit. It wets out the glass really well, and it will soak into the wood more readily. I'm gonna mix the crap out of it though. Hopefully 4 ounces is enough here. We're gonna do this tray. That will do. I did it without having to mix anything else up. Another all-nighter, but we're getting close to a water test for this boat. I'm not going to be able to completely fit it out as far as flooring, console, and all that sort of thing, not permanently anyway, until I know that my weight distribution in this small 14-foot boat is going to be the most efficient. So I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put everything. So as far as the flooring and everything else goes, it's going to go in temporarily. The console is going to be temporarily situated. Battery, gas tank, those are my 3 items I got to be concerned with besides myself. So right now what I want to do is put some plates. I'm going to put some aluminum plates on this transom, epoxy them to the transom in the back and in the front, so when we put the motor clamps on there, they don't end up, and I don't think they would, but I want some buffer between the mounting tabs and the transom itself. Even though it's glass and epoxy and everything like that, that's, generally speaking, that's a weak point where, you know, it might wear a crease in the transom and water will sneak in and all that sort of thing. Even with all the precautions I've taken with penetrating epoxy and good glass and everything like that, it's still a possibility, and I want to make this boat last as long as I can. We're going to cut our pieces of aluminum. I've got the chop saw with an abrasive blade set up over here, and we've got some scrap pieces of aluminum that my son Carson has taken off of this boat here. Don't look at that boat, we're not there yet, but we are rearranging the seating in there and putting some deck in and stuff like that. It's a whole nother video series, by the way. Broke my mount. What a piece of shit. So that coat of gray primer that I just put on the boat failed. It hasn't failed terribly, but it has not performed the way that I know that that primer should be. It's a little bit spongy, I guess. It's kind of gumming up the sanding pads. It's had plenty of time to cure. I ordered some fresh primer. I think the other stuff might have been a little bit old, and I am currently putting a fresh primer on. I had to grind about 90% of the old primer off. It's kind of aggravating. The polyester resin won't cure fully until the air is choked off from it. So you need to have a sacrificial coating of something on it, or a top coat of polyester resin that is called a finishing coat. The wax in it makes it cure fully. Also, if you're going to use a gel coat instead of a paint, that gel coat needs to have wax in it, because gel coat itself is polyester vinyl with just some pigments in it. So I'm throwing a coat of this white primer all over everything, and it just gets us one step closer to being able to finish paint. Buddy of mine, Alex, used to be responsible for fixing the mistakes that I made as a carpenter. He was a house painter. And he used to say, caulk, putty, and paint makes a carpenter what he ain't. And boy, ain't that the truth. I'd like to welcome the old 5-in-1 back to the program. We want to fill these gaps where water might settle. And there's a few places where the framing is not in full contact with the decking or with the hull. So we want to fill that in as well. Several places where that happens.